The blizzard screamed across the frozen planet like a living beast. White dust covered everything Skyland and the broken wreck of the human shuttle. Inside that wreck, a single man fought to stay alive. His name was Captain Ryan Keller, a deep space explorer from Earth, stranded light years from home. He sat near the small heater, rubbing his hands together as his breath turned to mist. The cold bit through his survival suit, even though it was built for extreme conditions. The temperature outside had dropped to -90, and the storm had raged for almost 2 days. His communication system was down, and his emergency beacon was out of power. Ryan had been trained for disasters, but not for this kind of silence, this kind of loneliness. He checked the power cells again. Only one was left, and he needed it to stay alive. Still, the signal on his scanner bothered him. It had appeared just an hour ago, a strange pulse coming from under the ice. At first, he thought it was an error. Then the scanner blinked again. Life form detected weak. Ryan stared at the words. Impossible, he muttered. There was no life on this planet. Every survey report said the same: no trees, no bacteria, no oxygen, nothing but endless snow and silence. Yet the scanner kept pulsing, faint but steady. Something down there was alive. He hesitated for a long moment, then sighed and pulled on his gloves. I guess I can't just sit here, he said softly. Grabbing his shovel and portable torch, he stepped out into the storm. The wind hit him like a wall. His boots sank into the snow with every step as he followed the signal deeper into the frozen field. The ice glowed faint blue under his headlamp, and the sound of his breathing was the only thing he could hear. After almost an hour, the signal grew stronger. Then, under the surface, he saw a faint metallic shape, a smooth curve buried in the frost. He knelt, brushed the snow away, and froze. It wasn't a rock. It was Glassno, a cryopod. Ryan's heart began to pound. The pod was old, half-cracked, its lights flickering weakly. Inside, through the frost, he saw a woman. She wasn't human. Her skin was pale silver with a faint shimmer, her hair like threads of moonlight, and her face peaceful as if she were dreaming. She looked young, maybe 20, and her body was still. He wiped the glass with his sleeve. The readout beside the pod blinked red. Power failure, life support critical. Hang on, he said aloud. He didn't know why. She couldn't hear him. But the sight of another living being, after so many hours of cold. Silence ignited something inside him. Hope. He used the torch to melt the ice around the pod. It took nearly 2 hours to free it, his fingers numb and his suit alarms blinking warnings. He tied a cable around the pod and dragged it back toward the shelter, every step a battle against the wind. His legs trembled, but he refused to stop. By the time he reached the wreck, his vision blurred from exhaustion. He stumbled inside and collapsed beside the heater. The pod screen flashed one last warning. System shut down. Ryan ripped off his gloves and connected the last power cell to the pod's port. The lights flickered, but the temperature inside kept dropping. It wasn't enough. He looked at the alien woman through the glass. Her lips were turning pale blue. He could see the faint outline of frost forming on her eyelashes. He knew what that meant. She had minutes left. He bit his lip and whispered, I only have one option left. Opened the cryopod manually and lifted her out. She was light, almost weightless, her body cold as ice. He laid her beside his sleeping bag, then stopped. The heater couldn't warm her body fast enough. The only heat he could share was his own. Without thinking further, Ryan unzipped his sleeping bag, wrapped it around both of them, and held her close. Her skin was so cold that it burned to touch. He felt his own heart hammering in his chest as he whispered, Come on. Live, please. Minutes passed, then hours. Outside, the storm continued to roar, shaking the wreck. Inside, Ryan fought to stay awake. His vision dimmed, his body trembling from cold and exhaustion. He felt her chest barely rise. Then, a small breath against his neck. His eyes snapped open. The alien woman stirred slightly, her fingers twitching. Her eyelids fluttered, revealing violet eyes, clear, bright, and filled with confusion. She gasped softly, her voice weak and musical. Ryan froze. He didn't know what to say. Slowly, she looked around, her gaze falling on him. She didn't speak his language, but her expression said everything: fear, confusion, and something else. Recognition, maybe? He lifted his hand slightly, trying to show peace. "It's okay," he said quietly. "You're safe. You were frozen. I helped you." She blinked slowly, her lips moving, whispering a few words he couldn't understand. Her hand trembled as she touched her chest, then pointed at him. "Lyra," she said softly. Ryan frowned. "Lyra? Is that your name?" She blinked again and nodded faintly. Her voice cracked as she whispered again. "Lyra." "Okay, Lyra," he said. "I'm Ryan." He pointed to himself, then smiled faintly. "Ryan." She tried to repeat it, "Ryan." The sound came out soft, uncertain. He chuckled despite his fatigue. For a while, they simply looked at each other in the dim glow of the heater. The sleeping bag was still wrapped around them, her silver hair resting against his shoulder. The air inside was warm now, filled with the sound of 2 heartbeats. When he tried to move, she suddenly gripped his wrist tightly. Her strength surprised him. "Hey, easy," he whispered. But she shook her head, eyes wide with fear. She didn't want him to leave. He stayed still, trying to calm her. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Gradually, her grip loosened. She looked exhausted, her breathing heavy. But her eyes never left his face. Ryan spent the rest of the night watching over her, checking her temperature, making sure she was stable. The storm outside grew worse, the wind howling like an animal. But inside that small wreck, something warm had awakened, not just in the air, but inside him. When dawn's faint light filtered through the frost-covered window, he looked at her again. She was sleeping peacefully now, wrapped in the blanket they shared. Her silver skin glowed softly under the heater light. He whispered to himself, "Who are you, Lyra? And what happened to you?" Later, while she slept, he checked the pod's memory unit. It was damaged, but he managed to recover fragments of data images of stars, maps of galaxies he didn't recognize, and a symbol of a fleet long forgotten. He couldn't make sense of it, but one line repeated in the alien text again and again, glowing faint blue on the cracked screen. He used the translation tool from his wristpad. The words appeared slowly in human letters. "Do not wake the sleeper. The signal brings death." Ryan's eyes widened. He looked back at Lyra, asleep beside the heater, her breathing calm. "What does that mean?" he whispered. "Who wanted to keep you frozen?" The thought sent a chill through him that had nothing to do with the cold. He didn't know that far above the planet. In the quiet dark of space, a long dormant signal had already been received. A distant machine stirred awake. Somewhere in the void, something ancient began to move. Ryan looked down at Lyra again. She shifted slightly, her hand brushing against his arm, as if she sensed his unease even in her sleep. He smiled faintly. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that the moment he pulled her from the ice, his fate had already changed forever. Outside, the storm howled on. Inside the broken shuttle, 2 lives, human and aliens, slept under the same thin blanket, while unseen eyes in the stars turned toward them. The next morning, the storm had not stopped. It screamed outside like the world itself was angry. Inside the wreck shuttle, Captain Ryan Keller was still awake. He had barely slept. His mind kept returning to the words he had seen on the damaged screen. "Do not wake the sleeper. The signal brings death." He looked at the alien woman lying near the heater. Lyra. She was breathing softly now, her body no longer cold, her silver skin glowing faintly in the warm light. She looked peaceful, almost human in her rest. For a moment, Ryan forgot the warning and simply watched her, amazed by the thought that he had saved a life from another world. When she opened her eyes again, those violet pupils caught the morning light and reflected it like tiny stars. She blinked slowly, then focused on him. Her voice was quiet, soft but musical. "Ryan," she said. Ryan smiled a little. "Yeah, that's me. Ryan." She repeated the name with more confidence this time. "Ryan." He nodded encouragingly. "Good you remember?" They tried to talk, but the barrier between their languages stood like a wall. Ryan pointed at things heater, water, food. Pecan said the words slowly. Lyra watched him closely, repeating the sounds with interest. Her intelligence was obvious. She was learning fast. At one point, she touched the cracked metal walls and looked confused. "Not skyship," she said, her accent thick but clear enough. Ryan laughed softly. "No, not a ship anymore. More like a broken can." She tilted her head, not understanding the joke, but she smiled anyway, the expression small and genuine. It made her face look warm and alive. Hours passed as the two worked together. Ryan tried to fix the beacon again, hoping to reach any passing rescue craft. Lyra followed him, watching each move with curiosity. She was graceful, even in the tight cabin, her silver-white hair drifting lightly every time she moved. When he stepped outside to check the antenna, the wind slammed into him again. He was halfway to the broken transmitter when he heard a sound behind him, a light crunch of boots. He turned and saw Lyra standing at the door, holding onto the frame. "Go inside," Ryan shouted over the storm. She shook her head, eyes wide, and said something he couldn't catch. Her hand reached toward him. "I'll be fine," he yelled back. But she didn't move. Her lips trembled, and he could see fear in her eyes. Deep, real fear. He sighed and went back inside. All right, he said. "You win." The moment he stepped through the hatch, she grabbed his arm and didn't let go. Her fingers were warm now, but stronger than any human's. Ryan stared at her hand holding his sleeve. "You're really not going to let me go, huh?" he said with a tired smile. Lyra didn't answer. She only looked at him and said quietly, "Stay, danger." The word struck him like a stone. "Danger," he repeated. She nodded. "Yes, danger, signal. Calls hunters?" Ryan froze. The warning on the cryopod flashed through his mind again. "The signal brings death." He asked slowly, "Hunters. Who are they?" She looked away, pain crossing her face. "My people. Long sleep. Enemy come. Fire. Cold. Only me left." Her voice broke on the last words. And Ryan suddenly understood. She had watched her crew, maybe her whole colony, die before she entered cryosleep. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. She might not know the words, but tone was universal. Her eyes met his, soft now, grateful. For a moment, they simply stood together, the storm sound fading behind the walls. That night, while she rested, Ryan repaired the beacon's wiring and powered it on using the few spare cells he still had. The light blinked green, and a faint tone filled the cabin. Signal transmitting. Relief washed through him. Maybe a patrol ship would catch it. Maybe he would finally go home. When he looked back, Lyra was awake, her expression tight with fear. "No signal," she whispered. "Please, no." Ryan frowned. "It's just a rescue call." She shook her head, moving closer. "You call. They hear." She pointed upward. "Hunters come," tried to reassure her, but her panic grew. She spoke fast, her words tangled with fear. "They smell light. Always. Long ago, they come when we send cry call. All die. You stop." Before he could respond, the scanner beeped sharply. A contact signal. Ryan leaned over the screen and froze. 2 signals appeared. One weaker Thorigen. The other strong, approaching fast from deep orbit. Not human. He looked at Lyra. Her face had gone pale. "They come," she said. "I tell you." The next hours were chaos. Ryan turned off the beacon, but it was too late. The larger signal kept moving toward them. He could almost feel the vibration through the frozen ground. Outside, storm finally eased, revealing a bleak horizon of silver ice and dark clouds. Ryan armed the only weapon he had, a pulse rifle with 1 power cell, and checked the shuttle's defenses. Lyra watched him silently, then stepped beside him and placed her hand on his chest. "No fight," she said quietly. "You die." "Then what do you suggest?" he asked, She closed her eyes and breathed slowly. The air around her seemed to hum faintly. When she opened them again, her violet irises glowed with light. "We hide." Ryan blinked. "Hide where?" She pointed toward the cliffs beyond the crash site. "Old ship. My people. Buried." He hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Then lead the way." They packed quickly rations, heat cells. The rifleman stepped out into the cold again. The snow had stopped, leaving the landscape silent and endless. In the distance, a strange shape jutted from the ice like a mountain of black glass as they walked. Lyra kept glancing at the sky. Once, Ryan caught her expression, half sadness, half fear. He wanted to ask more, but they didn't have time. When they reached the cliffs, he saw what she meant. A massive structure lay half buried under centuries of frost. Alien metal, smooth and shining, carved with symbols like the ones he had seen on the pod. "This was your ship?" he asked. She nodded. "Home." Together, they forced open a narrow hatch and slipped inside. The air inside was still and cold, but no longer deadly. Ancient lights flickered weakly along the walls. Ryan followed her deeper, past frozen corridors and empty rooms. There were old skeletons, alien remains, their armor shattered. Lyra stopped beside one and knelt. Touching the lifeless hand with quiet respect, she whispered something in her language, a farewell maybe. Then she stood and turned back to Ryan. "Hunters kill all," she said softly. "Now they find me again." Ryan wanted to say something comforting, but before he could, his wrist scanner beeped. The hostile signal was almost above them. Lyra's hand found his again. "You stay with me," she said. "Not go." He met her eyes. "I'm not leaving you." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Not real thunder, but the sound of engines. A ship, dark and sharp like a blade, pierced the clouds. It hovered above the ice, scanning, searching. Ryan turned to Lyra. "They're here." She nodded, calm now, as if she had expected this moment all along. "I fight," she said quietly. "You hide." "No chance," he said. "If you fight, I fight." She looked at him with something between shock and admiration. Then, slowly, she smiled, soft. Trembling smile that reached her eyes. For a brief second, the alien glow in her skin brightened. "Then we both live. Or both end," she said. The ground shook as the enemy ship fired a beam into the valley, melting the ice into steam. Ryan ducked behind a fallen support beam, dragging Lyra with him. Her hands pressed against the floor, and strange energy spread from her fingertips, forming a faint shield around them. The blast hit, shaking the entire cavern, but the energy absorbed the impact. Ryan stared in disbelief. "What are you?" he whispered. She looked at him, exhaustion already showing on her face. "Linked," she said. "You warm me. Now my life." "Tied to you?" He didn't understand at first. Then the truth dawned when he had shared his body heat to save her. Something had happened. A bond had formed. Outside, the enemy ship circled again. The storm was returning, dark clouds swirling above them. Lyra touched his arm once more, her eyes fierce now. "They not take you," she said firmly. "Never." Ryan nodded. "Then we make our stand here." The glow around her hands brightened again as she drew power from some unseen source. The air vibrated, cold and electric. In that moment, Ryan realized she wasn't just an alien survivor, she was something far more dangerous and far more extraordinary. The hunters descended through the storm, weapons blazing. Ice exploded around the old ship as Ryan and Lyra prepared for the final fight, and as the first blast hit the cliffside, she whispered the words that sent a shiver down his spine. "You saved me once, Ryan. Now, I save you." The storm came back harder than before. Snow and ice spun through the air like shards of glass. Above the frozen cliffs, the dark alien ship circled, scanning the ground with red beams that cut through the mist. Inside the buried wreck, Captain Ryan Keller and Lyra stood side by side, ready for whatever was coming. Ryan held his rifle tight, even though his hands shook from cold and fear. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was just an explorer who had crashed in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now he had something to protect. Lyra stood next to him, calm and focused. The faint light inside her silver skin pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. She looked tired but strong. When she spoke, her voice was soft, yet carried through the noise. "They smell power," she said. "They come to finish what long ago began." Ryan asked, "Who are they really?" She looked at him, eyes glowing violet in the darkness. "Hunters of stars. They destroy life that does not obey. My people fight them once. We lose." He swallowed hard. "And if they find us, then we fight again," she said simply. A loud crash echoed through the cave as part of the ceiling broke away. The hunters had found the signal. Bright blue fire burst through the tunnel, melting the frost and filling the air with smoke. Ryan ducked behind a metal beam, dragging Lyra with him. "They're inside," he shouted. Lyra raised her hands, and a wave of light spread out like a shield. The first blast hit it, scattering sparks across the floor. Her face tightened in pain. The energy drained her quickly, but she didn't let go. Ryan leaned close. "Can you hold it?" She nodded weakly. "Only little time." When the beam stopped, Ryan saw 3 shapes in the mist hall, black-armored beings with glowing red visors. They moved with slow confidence, scanning the darkness. Ryan aimed his rifle and fired. The shot hit one square in the chest, throwing it back. The others turned immediately, firing energy bolts toward the flash. Lyra pulled him down just in time. The blasts tore through the wall, sending fragments everywhere. He coughed through the smoke. "Any ideas?" Lyra's breathing was shallow. "They track life. We must become still. Hide heartbeat." Ryan stared. "Hide heartbeat. I can't do that." She looked at him seriously. "I can." She placed her hand on his chest again. For a moment he felt warmth, then nothing. His pulse slowed, his breath quieted. The air around them shimmered faintly, bending the light. Outside the tunnel, the hunters stopped moving. They scanned again, but saw nothing. The shimmer hid both of them like mist hides a shadow. After a few long seconds, the red visors turned away. The hunters began to move toward the deeper chambers. When the sound of their steps faded, Lyra dropped her hand and gasped for air. Ryan's heartbeat returned suddenly, fast and heavy. "What was that?" he asked. "Bond," she whispered. "I can make your life still for a moment, but it hurts both." He looked at her, realizing again what she had said before, that their lives were linked. He didn't fully understand how, but he could feel it now. Her exhaustion was his exhaustion. Her pain echoed in him like a quiet echo through the mind. He helped her sit down beside the wall. "You need rest," "No," she said, shaking her head. "They not stop. More come." He could see it in her eyes. She was right. The scanners on his wrist blinked again, showing multiple signals closing in. The hunters were spreading out, searching every corner. Ryan checked his rifle. Only 1 charge left. "Guess we make it count," he said with a small smile. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. "Why you help me?" she asked softly. He blinked, surprised by the question. "Because you were dying. Because it was right." She tilted her head slightly, confused. "Right. Yeah," he said simply. "You needed help." "I was there." Her eyes softened, and a faint smile touched her lips. "No one ever helped my kind before," she whispered. "Not even we help each other." Ryan didn't know what to say. He just nodded, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The world outside was full of danger, but inside that quiet moment, everything felt still. Then the ground shook again. The enemy ship had landed. Heavy footsteps echoed through the tunnel. Ryan stood up and helped Lyra to her feet. "Stay behind me," he said. She frowned. "No, we stay together." He wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. The first hunter stepped into view, its armor gleaming under the light of Lyra's glow. It raised its weapon, but Lyra was faster. She stretched out her hands, and a surge of energy shot forward, throwing the creature back against the wall. The impact cracked its armor, and the red light in its visor faded out. Another one came from behind. Ryan spun and fired his last shot. The pulse hit the alien's shoulder, sending sparks flying. He dove aside as it fired back, missing him by inches. Lyra raised her hand again, but this time the glow flickered. The bond between them pulsed painfully inside Ryan's chest. He could feel her strength fading. "Stop," he said. "You're hurting yourself." She shook her head. "If I stop, you die." The last hunter charged toward them, weapon glowing bright. Ryan grabbed a fallen pipe and swung it with all his strength, hitting the creature's arm and knocking the gun aside. The alien struck him back, throwing him hard against the wall. His vision blurred. Through the haze, he saw Lyra step forward, standing between him and the enemy. Her body glowed brighter, now too bright. "Lyra, don't," he shouted weakly. She looked back at him with tears in her eyes. "Bond mean life shared," she said. "So we live together, or end together." The hunter lunged. Lyra raised both hands, and a burst of pure light filled the tunnel. It wasn't fire, but something deeper, warm, powerful, alive. The shockwave threw the creature backward, tearing through its armor. The ship above shook from the impact. Then everything went silent. Ryan blinked through the smoke. The hunters were gone, nothing left but shattered metal and frozen ash. Lyra lay on the floor, her body dimming. He crawled to her side, heart pounding. "Lyra, hey, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open. "You safe," she whispered. "You saved me again," he said, voice cracking. "But don't you dare die on me." She smiled faintly. "Not die. We same now. Where you go, I go." He realized what she meant. The bond wasn't only a connection, it was life itself. If she faded, he would too. If he lived, she would live. Their hearts beat together now. One rhythm shared between two beings from different worlds. Outside, the storm finally broke. The clouds split apart, revealing the cold stars. From far above, a faint signal reached them, a human rescue beacon. The Earth Patrol had picked up his distress call before he shut it off. They were coming. Ryan carried Lyra out of the broken ship and into the light. She leaned weakly against him, her silver skin glimmering under the star-filled sky. "Home?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Yes. Home." She looked up at the sky, her eyes full of wonder. "Long time I forget stars look like this," she said quietly. "Always cold. Always fear. Now warm," he smiled. "That's what humans do best. We bring warmth where there's none." Hours later, the rescue craft descended through the thin atmosphere. The crew stared in disbelief when they saw him standing there, holding an alien woman close. The commander stepped out, shouting over the wind, "Captain Keller, you're alive." "Who's that with you?" Ryan looked at Lyra. She watched the humans carefully, but didn't move. He answered simply, "Someone I couldn't leave behind." They helped both aboard the shuttle. Inside, the warmth returned, soft lights filling the cabin. Lyra touched the window, staring at the blue planet hanging in the distant earth. "Your world," she whispered. "Our world," Ryan corrected gently. She turned to him, her expression soft. "Then I stay. Not let you go." He laughed quietly. "Yeah, I figured you'd say that." When the ship left the frozen planet behind, Ryan looked out one last time. The snow glowed faintly below, hiding the ruins and the dark ship that had brought so much death. But for the first time since the crash, he felt peace. Beside him, Lyra closed her eyes and leaned against his shoulder. The faint light in her skin matched the steady beat of his heart. He whispered softly, "You're safe now." She smiled in her sleep and murmured words he could barely hear. "We both safe. My home." The stars stretched before them, endless and bright. A human and an alliant, two survivors bound by warmth, courage, and something deeper than either could explain. And as Earth's light grew larger in the window, Ryan realized the truth. The woman he had saved from the ice had given him something far greater in return. She had given him a reason to live,